Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Joey Coleman, who just published his new book, Never Lose an Employee Again. Joey has done a lot of research, and he's an amazing storyteller, as you will discover in this conversation with Joey. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And it's like a good series on Netflix or a Star Wars episode 2 now. Episode 13, if you look at all the podcast, was an amazing gentleman by the name of Joey Coleman, who wrote the book, Never Lose a Customer Again. And here we are, and over 170 episodes later down the road, Joey is publishing his new book, Never Lose an Employee Again. He's been doing an amazing research. I was privileged to read some of the input paper that his team prepared. I have tons of questions and always amazed by what he's doing, the insight he's giving, and it's always well supported, an amazing case. He's an amazing storyteller. I'm going to stop doing that because I want you to have the opportunity to listen to, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Joey Coleman.
Eric, you are too kind. I so appreciate the generous introduction, my friend. You are lovely. And thanks to everybody watching, listening in. I can tell you that no matter what, I'm going to love this conversation because I'm such a fan of Eric and see he's such a character and personality. And I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I do.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. So let's dig into it immediately. I speak with a lot of friends in EO or entrepreneurs, and I regularly hear people complaining that their employees are not as motivated as they are. And I always ask, yeah, but it's not their company. So what do you do for them? And you've been researching about that, right?
I have, yeah. Like you, Eric, one of the most frequent laments I hear from business owners, from leaders, from entrepreneurs is, I wish my employees cared as much about the business as I do. And while I empathize with that feeling, and as a fellow employer and small business owner, I have felt that way. I have thought that way. I've even said that from time to time. But what I realized is that our employees wish that we cared as much about them as we care about the business. And like the wonderful aspect of reciprocity in the human condition, if we want someone to treat us one way or to believe something that we believe, we need to do it to them first. We need to treat them that well first, and they'll reciprocate. And so the question then becomes, what are you doing to show and tell your employees how much you care about them? Most employers, pretty good at telling their employees how much they're doing for them. Look at me, I'm making payroll. Look at me, I'm doing this, I'm doing that for you. They're not as quick to show them. And they're not as quick to lead by example when trying to create personal and emotional connections.
So when does it start? When does an employer start showing their employee that they care about them?
Well, I think most employers think that they should wait until this employee has proven themselves. So after you've been here for a while, we see your worth at the time, the talent, the effort. Now we'll actually care about you. You'll get some new benefits. We'll unlock some perks. I would posit that it needs to start when they read the job description for the position you're hiring them for. That you need to take it all the way to the beginning. Their first exposure to you as a potential employer, as a brand. What are you doing to show them how you're going to care for them if they decide to become an employee?
So basically what you're saying that we should sell to our employees like we should sell the company to our client.
It's interesting. My first book, as you shared, was called Never Lose a Customer Again. This book's called Never Lose an Employee Again. Some people are like, Joey, you've been a customer experience guy for so long. Why are you switching to become an employee experience guy? And I'm like, folks, all that changed in the title was one word. The methodologies, the philosophies, the spirit, the concept behind taking care of people is the same, whether they're paying you to be a customer or you're paying them to be an employee. Humans want to be wanted. They want to be appreciated. They want to be valued. We should be regularly in front of the people that we care about the most, doing things for them, letting them feel seen, letting them feel heard, letting them feel appreciated. Whether it's a customer or an employee, they want the same things.
Yeah, exactly that. Being seen, being heard, being part of a team. There was an amazing example you give in the book, if you can share, about Sir Ernest Henry Shackleton,
Yeah. So
and how he built his own team, how he was recruiting people.
Shackleton's an interesting character. He was an explorer at the turn of the century. Folks may have heard of his infamous endurance expedition to Antarctica. And what's interesting is Shackleton's putting together this team to go to Antarctica. He needs cooks and sailors and seamen and captains and scientists and all these folks. And he's trying to figure out, how can I put together the best possible team to go do something that no one's really done before? Explore Antarctica, try to make our way to the South Pole. Loads everybody up. They go down to South America. They refuel, they get some additional supplies, and they head into Antarctica. And almost immediately their ship gets stuck in the ice, which this happens when you're in Antarctica from time to time. But it gets stuck for over 10 months. And it gets stuck so bad that the ship starts to break apart and sink. They have time to get off the ship, but now they're stranded on the ice and the ship has sunk to the bottom of the ocean. They're then trying to load up into sled dogs and go over tents and work their way back. Long story short, it takes 2 years. But interestingly enough, of the 27 members of the crew, no one dies.
Wow.
This was unheard of. All the other expeditions that had gone to Antarctica before this, someone died. Like, it's an inhospitable environment. It's tough. You're an explorer. So when I was doing some research, I was like, why did they live? What was it that made it different? And I found some anecdotal stories from Shackleton talking about the one question he asked every candidate. They'd go through and they'd do the interviews, they'd get their qualifications, and then Shackleton would come in for the final interview and he'd say, I have but one question. Do you sing? Not do you sail? Do you like the taste of seal? No, it was, do you sing? And he would notice the perplexed look on the candidate's face as they're like, sing? What are you talking about? He'd say, no, I don't mean any of that opera stuff. But if you're gathered around the fire with the boys singing a song, are you going to join in? Because see, what Shackleton had learned on his previous 2 voyages to Antarctica was that in the cold, dark Antarctic night, when the katabatic winds were blowing across and just numbing to the bone, if people could huddle around the fire and sing a song and boost morale and feel connected to their fellow humans, they would live to fight another day. So the question I'd ask employers that are listening in or watching to think about is there a single question you could ask your employees that would help you identify, is this the kind of person we want on the team? Not the kind of skill set or the kind of requirements or abilities or, aptitudes, but rather, does this person have the attitude of the kind of person we would like to invite into our organization?
I was smiling. I was picturing Elon Musk asking a candidate, do you sing?
Yeah, probably not a similar interaction, I would imagine.
No, I think it's a brilliant question. And I do believe that moving forward in this new world of work, being able to build teams and motivate people and showing them that, they're part of the team and you respect them, that would be also an important factor for the success of companies, more than in the past, more than ever.
Absolutely. I mean, when I'll speak for myself, I remember hearing about the days and knowing people that went to work somewhere and they worked for 40 years and they retired and they got the gold watch and this was their job and career. I hate to break it to everyone joining us. Those days are over and they're not coming back. And they haven't been here for a while, but we've been deluding ourselves. We've been thinking like, oh, if it could just go back to the way it was. It's never going back. Employees today not only know that they want a career, they want a future, they want to feel progress, they want to feel accomplishment, but they expect their employer to know that as well and be a partner in that journey. It's not enough to say, hey, go figure it out yourself, kid. You're going to, work your career the way I worked my career. That's not the era we're in anymore. And I understand that's difficult. I understand that's challenging. And some people may say, oh, I wish it was the way it was. But was it really that great? It's kind of like imagine somebody saying, oh, I wish we were still using fax machines. They weren't that great. They were useful.
Yeah.
And they played their role. But if anybody said today, like, oh, I can't believe we can't use the fax machine anymore, they'd get laughed out of the room. The same holds true for this approach to treating your employees. It's time to take a more vested interest in their individual life and career path.
So when you have, when you have a small company, 10, 15 people, I guess you can still play that role. But if you have a larger company, how do company ensure the fact that each individual is seen, but also kind of guided into the company? And I know there's a great example of mentorship with Sun Microsystem that you speak about.
Absolutely. So I think the way you do it is you can care at scale. You just have to be strategic about it, and that has to be your culture. You're absolutely right. When you have 3 or 4 employees, you know what's going on in their life. You know what their path is. You probably know a lot more about their personal life than if you have 30 or 40 employees or 300 or 400 or 3,000 or 4,000. So I think what happens is as your business scales, your job as the leader is to maintain and model those connections with your direct reports in your team and set the expectation that they maintain those relationships with their team. And then obviously also be dropping into conversations with the frontline workers and the folks who don't report to you on a regular basis to connect with them. If I may tell a quick little story. When I was first working, so I went straight from college to law school. And my first job after law school, I worked for a consulting company called the Corporate Executive Board. I worked in a sales capacity. My job was to sell memberships to chief information officers and senior vice presidents of sales. And I travel all over the country, going in, doing a 30-minute pitch, trying to get them to join like a $30,000 to $40,000 membership. It was an amazing job. I learned a ton, worked with some incredible people. And then after I'd been there about, maybe 5 or 6 weeks, I made my first sale. Eric, I was ecstatic. You know, that salesperson feel when you make the first sale at a new job. People were ringing bells. They were celebrating. There was an impromptu happy hour in the office. They brought in drinks and hors d'oeuvres and everybody was celebrating. We were having a lot of fun and I just felt great. And that night, after everybody had left the office, I was kind of at my cubicle, cleaning up, getting ready to go home. It was dark. And we had phones on our desk, right? I know I'm dating myself with this story, right? This is the 90s. And there was a little blinking light that meant I had a message on the inner office voicemail system. And I pressed the button to listen to the message. And the message was from the chairman of the board of the company. Now, this is a publicly traded company at this time. And the message from the chairman of the board went something like this. Hey, Joey, I heard it through the grapevine that you made your first sale today. And he cited the name of the company. He said, we're so proud of you. We are really impressed that you made a sale so quickly. We love that we've got this new client in the membership. And we both see and expect big things from you in the future. We're really thrilled to have you on the team. Eric, even as I tell that story now, 20 plus years later, it gives me goosebumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt seen. I felt appreciated. And I haven't told many people this, I actually had a little dictaphone, a little handheld recorder that would record on tape. Again, I'm dating myself here. For those of you young whippersnappers listening, this is before you had a recording app on your phone. You had to carry around a little mini cassette player. And I played the message again and I recorded it onto my little tape deck. And then as I continued to work for this company, when I didn't get the sale, or when I was on the road and I'd had 4 or 5 meetings in a day and I was just exhausted in yet another hotel in yet another city that, just all of it blurring together, I'd play that message and I'd reconnect to that feeling I had that night when I made the first sale. Everyone listening has someone on their team that you could leave a message for, a voicemail, a video. Do something where they can hear your voice. Okay. An email's nice, A handwritten thank you note's nice. But when we can actually hear the person's voice, we feel the emotion at a different level. If you did nothing else from listening to this podcast, then figure out one person on your team that you could show a little gratitude towards. And you recorded them an audio message or a quick little video and you texted it to them. I promise you, not only will they listen to it and it will impact their life, they will save it and they will listen to it again in the future. And every time they do, they will actually appreciate you.
Absolutely.
It's an option worth considering.
Yeah. I have a friend who was former president of Macy's in Florida and Puerto Rico, and he was sharing the story that he was sending handwritten notes. And I don't know at which occasion, or was it 30, 40 years later, there was the spouse was just showing that he had still kept that handwritten note. It's the personal touch.
Absolutely. Eric, here, let's do a little experiment with everybody watching or listening. I'll ask you a couple questions. Number one, have you received a handwritten thank you note sometime in the last year? Now, that sound we hear right now is a lot of people nodding their heads like, yeah, I've gotten one. Great. Do you still have it? The majority of you are still nodding your heads like, yeah, I've got it. Why? You know who wrote it. You know what it said. You already read it, but you kept it. Why? Because human beings are dying for proof, physical proof that they matter, that they've made an impact, that they have done something worthy of putting pen to paper, sending it through the post, and delivering a handwritten note that says, you matter. We cannot say thank you enough. Absolutely. We cannot express gratitude enough. There's so many opportunities in so many ways. Not only does it make a difference to that recipient, but I would posit, I don't know about you, whenever I write a thank you note, I feel better. I feel more connected. Like there's a selfish benefit of doing it as well. You'll feel happier.
Absolutely. And it starts for me with the character, the personality of the leader.
Yes.
And we both know that people are leaving people. They're not leaving companies.
So true.
And when you have a AO that is has a boss, and I was just telling you, I have on one of my company, a private optimizing, under values, the first sentence is, we have a no assholes policy. And I was speaking to some friends, said, Eric, you think it's not a little harsh? I said, well, you know what? If people think it's harsh, it means that they're not the right people that should be working with.
Eric,
Period.
so true. So true. I'm a big believer that your materials, whether that's your job description, the About Us page on your website, your careers page, your interviews, should be as designed to repel as they are to attract. I don't want certain types of people to even apply. Why waste my time? More importantly, why waste their time? And if they're not going to be happy, don't even bring them in.
And they're going to be toxic to the rest of the team. I remember the Zappos was, at the end of the training period, they will pay you. They will offer you a stipend if you wanted to leave. And
$2,000. Right. $2,000. After they trained you for 30 days, they would say, you're about to start your official first day after training. We'll give you a $2,000 check right now if you want to not come to work tomorrow.
Which is amazing. And in your book, you're talking about an accounting firm, LTBD, which is actually rewarding people after 3 years that they earn a sabbatical and $9,000 if they report on what they've done. Isn't that wonderful?
It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm such a big fan of them. Yeah, we don't necessarily think of accounting companies as being creative and emotional, right? Like that's not usually the standard. But Tim Hawkins, the guy who runs LTBD, amazing human being. And you're right, 3-year anniversary, you get a sabbatical. And here's how the sabbatical works. 3 weeks off, plus you can add it to 2 weeks of your regular vacation. So you can take 5 weeks off. You get $9,000 cash in addition to your salary. You keep getting paid. You get $9,000 to use on the sabbatical. And as you alluded to, there's only one requirement. When you come back from the sabbatical, You have to tell us what you did. And they ask that you bring an artifact, a memento of your time away. So one of their employees took her girlfriends and went to Paris to get her wedding dress.
Hmm.
And another employee went to South Africa, worked in an orphanage for 2 weeks, and then went on safari for 2 weeks. Another employee went with their kids and camped in the mountains for 4 weeks with her, middle school aged, high school aged children so that they could have a great family vacation together. What I love about this example is the commitment to creating experiences for your employees. People ask the CEO of LTBD, Tim, all the time. They're like, oh, $9,000. He's like, after 3 years, they've more than earned $9,000. And what he said is really fascinating. Most employees come back, they share what they did, and within 1 week are planning their next sabbatical. They're planning their next 3 years. I don't know about you, Eric, but if I had an employee who was sitting there going, I got to be here for 3 years so that I can do that next thing, that's a factor in your retention.
Yep, absolutely. No doubt about it. And it's also people being proud of working for the company they're working with. When you need to hire, they're the best referral to speak to their friend. You mentioned in your book that so never lose an employee again, that a Gartner global survey found that 49% of employees lacked awareness of job openings within their own organization. This is insane.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And yet it's the reality. We have so many employers that I talk to that are like, we have these positions and our people just don't make referrals. And the first question I always ask is, do they know there's an open position? Well, of course they do. It's on our website. When was the last time an employee went to the public-facing version of the website of the place they work? I have my own website. I don't go to my own website more than about twice a year. Okay, now that may speak more about my technological savviness, but your employees are the same way. They're not cruising your website. How are you making it part of the conversation? If you have open position, people ask me that the last phase in the 8 phases I describe in the book is the advocate phase, where your employee becomes a raving fan singing your praises. I talk to employers all the time who say, well, Joey, we've got great advocates. I'm like, really? Can we put that to the test? And they're like, sure. I say, great. The last time you had an open position in your organization, how many of the candidates you interviewed were internal referrals from your existing employees? Cue tumbleweed. It's usually, 1, 2. Folks, you should be hovering in the double-digit percentages. Your employees, if they really loved where they work, are going to do everything they can to try to get their friends, their family members, their loved ones, the best person they ever worked with in another job to come work there. I was doing a conversation the other day and somebody, a live stream session, and somebody chimed in and they said, what do you think about hiring a referral that is the employee's sibling? And I was like, I would move them to the top of consideration almost instantly. And the person was like, wait, really? Does that feel like nepotism? Why is that? I said, look, I'm one of 7 kids. If I'm going to recommend one of my brothers or sisters for an opportunity, you can darn well bet yourself that I am confident they can do it, or else I'd never recommend them. Why would I put my own social capital on the line? And I know my siblings, I like to think, better than most humans know them. Yeah. I know the truth of whether they're reliable, whether they're going to do great work, whether they have the right attitude and the right ethic. So if somebody's coming forward and saying, this is a candidate that I'm recommending, as a general rule, you should take their word for it. If you like that employee, you're probably going to like the person they're referring to.
Absolutely. And it shows when you're doing that and there you have a good culture, then people speak outside of the company. And there's another story in your book. Actually, This amazing person was a guest of episode 152 of the Business of Meeting podcast. He has, if I remember well, 500,000 people on the waiting list to buy a ticket, and 3,000 people that are on his bench waiting to work for his organization. And that's Jesse Cole from the Savannah Bananas. So what can you tell us about him that is in your book?
Oh, I got to tell you, Eric, Jesse is a dear friend, and his wife, Emily, they run the Savannah Bananas. They're an amazing couple and just remarkable folks. What's interesting is I could have actually written an entire book about the bananas, and there have been entire books written by the bananas. Fans First, Banana Ball, 2 books, go check them out that kind of capture the story. But I got to share a story that not a lot of people know about the bananas, and that is that the Bananas internship program is one of the most coveted, hottest internship programs in the world of sports, right? Tons of people want to go work for the Bananas. If you look at TikTok followers, the Bananas have more TikTok followers than the top 9 teams in baseball, all their TikTok followers combined. The last 9 winners of the World Series combined, the Savannah Bananas have more. So this is a great gig. And so people apply for the job and they get the internship. And then Emily Cole, co-founder of the Bananas, writes a handwritten note to the intern's parents. And the handwritten note says, "You've done an amazing job raising your child. They showed up in the interview. They were so fantastic. We just loved everything about them." And then it gets real specific about some particular thing that stood out. "We want you to know that your child's about to come intern with the Savannah Bananas. And we need you to know that we take that seriously and we feel responsible. We're one big family. We understand we're going to have a member of your family coming here. We want you to know we're going to take great care of them. If you ever have any questions, you're concerned about them, you need anything, here's my personal cell phone number. Message me, call me. We'll make sure they're well taken care of and return them to you, in good care and in good standing."
Wow. I almost have like tears in my eyes listening to you. It's amazing.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If you're a parent, that idea of sending your child off to their first internship, you're scared, you're excited, and you want the best for them, but they're also going to be living in a different city that you don't live in, potentially working with people you don't know. If you're working for a pro sports team or a team that has the reputation the Bananas have, it's a lot of late nights and early mornings and you're on the road. There's a lot of moving pieces. What's really interesting is when I was talking to Emily about this, she said, when interns show up for the first day on the job, they almost always bring up the thank you note and thank Emily. You really made my mom and dad feel comfortable. They're really excited to meet you when they come visit or that kind of thing. We can do better in business. We can do better at creating personal and emotional connections, not only directly with our employees, but with the people who already love our employees. We can love on those who love on our employees and vice versa to build the number of advocates that we have.
Yeah. And it's so important. Again, the leaders of the organization. One of the another story you share about Marcus Freeman from this university that I know you have no attachment to.
Eric's teasing. I got to let you know, people. I went to the University of Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman's the head coach there. Good news. How do you know someone went to Notre Dame? Don't worry. They'll tell you.
They'll tell you. It's like the vegan. I heard the same story about vegan people.
Totally. Notre Dame fans and vegans. Exactly. And CrossFitters. We'll all tell you what we do, right? So yeah, I resemble this remark. I know Eric roots for another team. It's a lesser known team, I believe.
Oh, you mean the one who's playing now the finals of the NBA or the final of the Stanley Cup? Or are you referring to Messi coming to Miami? Which one?
Oh, Miami has amazing professional teams. The problem is trying to think that their college team is professional.
Oh,
shots fired, folks. It's getting
ladies and gentlemen, this was Joey Coleman. Thank you very much.
And the podcast, Joey, we're having technical difficulties. Your microphone cut out. I'm sorry. The podcast has to end here, ladies and gentlemen. No, but
Okay,
here's what I
back to
love about
Marcus
this.
Freeman.
Back to Marcus Freeman. Before we get into that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Here's what I love about this. This is what you should be doing with your employees. You should know what team they root for so you can have friendly conversations. You should know who their favorite actor or actress is, their favorite musician, so you can joke, you can play, you can spar. Even though Eric and I root for entirely different teams, we are polarity in terms of our fandom. We have a commonality in terms of our interest, and it deepens the relationship. And it doesn't have to be sports, folks. It can be hobbies, music, books, what you like to do on a Friday afternoon, a Saturday afternoon, that type of thing. Family, pets. Oh my God, pets. Are you kidding me? People go bonkers connecting about similarities and commonalities in pets. But anyway, you were talking about Marcus Freeman. I'll let you talk about the wonderful head coach at the University of Notre Dame football team.
I cannot do that as best. You know what? If I do that, people will scream blasphemy. So why is Marcus Freeman in your book about never lose an employee again?
Yeah, so I understand, and let's caveat this for anybody who's really into college athletics. I recognize that the question of whether a player on a football team is an employee is one that is being debated in the courts and still figured out in the NCAA. So let's just presume, for sake of argument, that they're kind of like an employee in the sense that we're recruiting them to join our team. We're asking them to perform specific roles, responsibilities, so that we can achieve specific goals that earn us money, notoriety, and accolades. So in that sense, pretty similar to an employee. What's really fascinating about Marcus Freeman is Marcus Freeman gets promoted to be the head coach at the University of Notre Dame's football team. And it's kind of unexpected, right? He's the defensive coordinator, but he'd never been a head coach before. Notre Dame, regardless of what you feel about the school, it has a long history and legacy in the world of college football. So this was a plum position. And Freeman comes on the scene and he's all about recruiting. In the same way that a real estate agent might say it's location, 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 Freeman's philosophy is we're recruiting, we're recruiting, we're recruiting. And contrary to many other schools, where if you're recruiting the quarterback, the lead recruiter is the quarterback coach. And if you're recruiting a safety, the lead recruiter is the safety coach. At the University of Notre Dame, the lead recruiter for every athlete that comes to that school, considering the football team, is the head coach, Marcus Freeman. The secondary recruiter is the position coach. So it's immediately sending a message to these young men that are coming to play on the team. You're seen by the boss. You matter to the boss. The boss is directly involved in the conversation. And they do some amazing things. They do a pot of gold day on St. Patrick's Day. Notre Dame's the only college football team in the world that has their own holiday named after them, St. Patrick's Day, right? When the Irish get really excited. They do big offers on St. Patrick's Day. They do all kinds of social media. They have an amazing offer letter that goes out that is unlike any offer letter you've ever seen. It's pop-up. It has beautiful imagery, gold foil, customized, personalized. They make recruiting an experience instead of making recruiting a task on the way to employment. That's something I think we could all model. Last thing I'll say, and then I'll stop talking about college football. I think every employer would benefit from considering approaching their employees as if they were a college coach. And here's why. When you're recruiting a player to come be on your team in college, you know that at best, they're going to be there 5 years, maybe 6. If they're University of Miami, 9 before they get their degree. But anyway, what you're going to figure out. Sorry, friends, I couldn't resist. It was too easy. It was too easy. All right. So you know you have a limited time period. And if they're really good, they're probably only going to be there 3 years. And they're going to leave and go to the NFL. Do coaches get mad when their players leave to go to the NFL? Not usually. They're usually quite happy. Why? Because number one, they're vested in that player. But number two, what better selling point do you have than saying, if you come here, we're going to train you up to be able to go to the next level? What if as an employer, you thought about how can my business be a stepping stone to the next level in your career? We know you'll only be here for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but we're going to do such a great job training you that when you do leave, you're going to come back to be a guest speaker, a recruiter, an advocate for our organization because you had such a remarkable time while you were part of the team.
Beautiful. You notice I didn't clinch when you mentioned the other university because my eldest daughter is a Gator, so I'm fine.
There you go. It's all
Totally
good.
fine. I'm
It's all
totally
good.
fine.
I love it. Chomp. I love it. I love it.
In the recruitment, one thing that you mentioned in the book, and I was really stunned, is that you recommend to send the questions in advance. And I was like, okay, so ChatGPT is going to answer that. They're going to learn it by heart, and then they're going to come back. Why do you recommend people to send the question in advance to the people they're going to interview?
Well, it's interesting, Eric. When we think about our employees, would you ever send a new employee into a meeting with your top client without explaining what kind of orders they've done in the past, who they are as a person, what matters to them, etc.? No,
Never.
We don't go into a meeting with a customer without being as prepped as we possibly can to deliver great interactions. So why are we indulging this narrative fiction that an employee should be able to randomly handle questions we're going to ask? Now, I'm not saying you have to share every question. Okay. I'm okay with you keeping a couple back as a surprise to see how they react to the unexpected. What I am suggesting is that you ask better questions and you give them a chance to think about their answer. Because when I think about my employees, I want them to respond to clients in a timely manner, but I don't want them to throw off the first idea that comes to their mind. I want them to be thoughtful. They get an email from a client that's like, hey, what about this? I want them to take a beat and say, what is this person really asking? What is the attention? What is the criteria by which I'm going to be judged on an answer? That's what I think we should be giving our candidates. We should be helping our candidates to succeed instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to make them run through this gauntlet. And if they pass, then I've deemed them worthy of my time and our attention and potentially an offer from our organization.
Yeah. And what are your strengths and your weaknesses?
Yeah, exactly. But questions that I'm like, number one, that question produces horrible answers that are often lies. And number two, it's just lazy. Don't be lazy. Let me give you one question I came across that I absolutely loved when I was doing the research. What about asking this question? If we were to go to your computer and we were to look at the open tabs on your browser, what tabs would we see?
Nice.
Now, see what that says to me? You're going to learn a couple things. Number one, they might say, well, actually, I don't have more than 2 or 3 tabs open at any time. Oh, I just learned a lot. They may say, oh my gosh, I've got about 50 tabs open right now. Okay, you just learned a lot. What are those tabs? Well, social media. I've got Amazon open because anytime I hear a book recommendation, I go ahead and do that. I've got YouTube open because I like to listen to this type of music when I work. I've got my calendar open because I always want to know what's going on. I'm a big fan of soccer, so I've got live streaming feed of soccer. You're learning about who they are as a human in a way that doesn't feel like, tell me your strengths, tell me your hobbies, tell me the things you like. No, we're getting to the same results, but in a much more engaging, fun way.
Interesting. Love that. When you were writing the book, so I guess the last 2 years, I keep hearing the same time, a lot of people are resigning, a lot of people are quitting their job. And now you're hearing all those layoffs and people complaining about not being able to find good employees. Where do the people go?
You know, it's interesting and it's a complicated question, Eric, but I'll do my best to answer based on what I've seen in the research. And I want to flag that we're about to go into some topics or some answers that could be frustrating or upsetting to people. And that's not my intention. My intention is to try to show what the data seems to indicate. The data seems to indicate that post-COVID, post the pandemic, we've got a number of things at play that are contributing to the shortage in available workers. We're down even just in number of workers before we even get to a conversation about great workers or talented workers. Let's just look at pure numbers. Number one, we had a lot of people who were in the workforce who died during COVID. So we saw a reduction that was greater than the normal reduction. Number two, we had a lot of people who during COVID had to quit their job to go take care of an ailing parent or children who haven't come back into the workplace, or if they have come in, they've come in at a more junior place because they lost the time. And employers are looking at it going, well, you've got this gap in your resume, so we're going to bring you in lower in our organizational chart. Number 3, immigration policies changed during that time. So the number of total folks in the United States in particular who were able to work went down.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, employees realized that the emperor had no clothes. They realized that the jobs that they had been working for didn't actually value and appreciate them as much as they thought. And that led many employees to say, I'm going to move to another town. I'm going to quit doing this work and go to a completely different industry. It was a reset in people's personal lives that made them question their career choices. And as a result, it created gaps in a variety of different markets and different industries that just haven't filled in. Last but not least, number 5, which has been going on for a long time and is going to keep going. Each year, we have fewer workers entering the workforce at age 18 than the previous year. We are seeing fewer children being born in the United States. So the total number of eligible workers in the workplace is going down.
Yeah.
Last category. It used to be that 30 years ago, 40 years ago, if you or I had a job, it is most likely that we worked for an employer that was in our hometown, that the headquarters was less than 30 miles from our house, that we drove to work, we worked for them, and then we went home. Now, it is highly likely that your employer doesn't have a physical office in your hometown. You're working remotely. You might be working for an international company. You're doing gig work, part-time work here and there. So the competition for talent has changed dramatically. I'm fielding a lot of phone calls right now from my consulting clients who say, Joey, we're losing people to companies outside the United States who are hiring remote workers in the US who are native English speakers that they're allowing to work remotely. How do I combat that? Well, you combat that by being the kind of employer in the place where people want to stay.
Absolutely.
So it's all those things, basically. It's not any one of them. It's the confluence of all of those things has created this shortage.
And what kind of employee benefit you've come, original employee benefit you've come across during your research?
Oh, so many, so many. You know, it's interesting. I think a lot of employers historically have thought, well, I know what we'll do. We'll give a foosball table in the break room and that'll make everybody excited. There was a time where that was interesting, but nobody ever took a job because they had a foosball table. Okay. They may have liked that perk. And I'm not saying get rid of the foosball table. What I am saying is think more about what matters to your employees. So a couple of interesting examples. Our mutual friend, John Ruhlin, amazing human being, runs this company called Giftology. John has 2 really unique perks for his employees. Number 1, unlimited babysitting. So anybody who works for John, if they want to go on a date with their spouse, their significant other, they can hire a babysitter and submit the receipt to John for reimbursement. John's theory is, I want my people to be in good relationship with their partners. I'm happy to pay for the babysitter. I never want you connecting with your significant other, your spouse, to be inhibited by, I'm not sure if it's worth the money. No. Go do that, because he knows if he creates stability in the home, it leads to stability in the workplace. The other thing he does is everybody who works for them can hire a house cleaner. Again, they go find the person they want to clean their house. They create the contract, they pay for it, and they submit for reimbursement. Now, when John told me about this, I was like, John, why don't you just give them the money? He's like, because most of my employees are women. And what I found is that if they're given the money, they'll spend it on the family instead of spending it on the cleaner. They'll buy extra toys for the kids. They'll buy something for their husband or their spouse. They won't spend it on the cleaner. They'll just do the cleaning themselves. Again, to be very clear, not to say that women should do the cleaning. I'm just saying this is the experience in John's employee base. So by making it that they get a reimbursement, it encourages them to spend the actual money.
Brilliant.
Imagine being an employee who didn't have to worry about a clean house or hiring a babysitter.
Yeah.
That's a perk, a benefit that no headhunter that's coming in to hire you is going to have on the list from the employer that's trying to poach you away. Those
Correct.
aren't benefits they're offering. And they're benefits that John only has to pay for if they're used.
Yeah.
So if somebody's not into having a babysitter, or they're single, or they don't have children and they don't need that, great, no problem. It doesn't cost me anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the second they do, now every time they use it, they're reminded of how much their employer is looking out for them. Last thing I'll say on this, most employers spend a lot of time thinking about what their employees do between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. World-class employers pay attention to what happens in their employees' lives between 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. The more you pay attention to what matters to your employees in their personal lives, the better positioned they will be to give everything they've got during the 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. professional life.
Which includes not sending email in the evening.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you mentioned, only because you said that, we mentioned our accounting friend, Tim Hawkins at LTBD. Their email servers shut off every night at 6 p.m. And anyone that emails in at 6 p.m. gets an autoresponder that says, we like our employees to be able to go home and spend the evening with their family. This is not going to be delivered until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then they will respond accordingly. Wow. And on Friday, the message says it's turned off for the weekend. They'll respond Monday. Because friends, and I say this lovingly, there's no such thing as an accounting emergency. There's accounting issues, but there's no reason somebody needs to be doing accounting at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, right? It's not required. I don't know many businesses that need to be as accessible as they claim to be.
Yeah.
If you're an ER doctor, maybe you're a criminal defense lawyer, sure, I get it that you might work odd hours. But for most jobs, let your people go home. Let them not do work. And because many employers say to me, well, Joey, I don't require my people to do email. I get it. But you send them emails at night and they think, well, I'm supposed to respond, right?
Right.
Shut it down for everyone. Remove the temptation. It's like taking the sugar out of the house, right? Just make it hard to do the thing that we know is not going to be good for us by just flipping the switch and getting it out.
Yeah, and now that we are approaching the summer, it reminds me the difference between Europe and us. In Europe, the out of office is when camping, call me back in September. Yeah. And here is I'm sorry to be unavailable for a few hours. I have open heart surgery. Please leave a message and come back to you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's great. We could do better. We could do better, and we should do better.
My friend, it's been an amazing conversation. I just love listening to you and all your stories. I highly recommend everyone listening to buy your book and read Never Lose an Employee Again. And I could not leave you without asking you the question that is always asked from this amazing person, thanks to whom we know each other, which is Jason Gaignard. So in 1 year time, when we meet again with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to celebrate?
I hope what we're celebrating, Eric, is that sometime during that year, an employer comes up to me and says, Joey, I read the book and I am making progress at treating my employees more like humans, creating personal and emotional connection, and trying to be a leader instead of a manager. If that happens, I'll have felt like it was all worth it.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Joey Coleman. Joey, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Oh, Eric, thank you. And thanks to everybody watching and listening in. So appreciate you joining us for the conversation. And I really wish you the best as you go out and try to enhance all the experiences and interactions you have with your customers, with your employees, with anyone you come across.
Joey, thank you so much for sharing those stories. I love the research you do. And more importantly, I love the way you tell those stories. Fascinating. I'm sure that everyone listening have ideas now how to become an even better employer to our team. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please do so on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your network. And don't forget to buy Joey's book. Thank you. Bye-bye.